What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike. Today we're going to go through the proof. You knew I wasn't going to leave you hanging. I just made the accusation that all of the problems that I've been having with my estrogen coming off the tail of the mint cycle has been caused by Royal Medical Center's inability to pull logical and reasonable blood work. There is absolutely no reason that any doctor should be pulling non-sensitive blood work tests when checking for estradiol in a known bodybuilder, somebody who's being given steroids and is admitted to taking steroids. You cannot pull non-sensitive estradiol checks and think that you're going to get usable numbers. And right now I'm going to prove to you exactly what has happened over the last 6 to 9 months, comparing the blood work that I pulled with the doses I was taking versus the blood work that was pulled by my TRT clinic, Royal Medical Centers, aka Royal fucking idiots. So let's dial it back so that we can have one clear consensus about what's been going on. So the blood work that I pulled that showed that I had high E2 came from June the 24th of 2024 when and during that period of time, I was taking, in the week leading up to the blood work that I pulled on June 24th, was back when I was on 15 milligrams of mint per day and DECA. So I was taking Masteron at 400 milligrams per week. I was taking HCG at 500 milligrams, 500 IUs 3 times a week, 300 milligrams of DECA, and I was on Tren at, test was at 300, I was on 500 milligrams of test, and let's see if I can find my Tren to determine whether or not I was on E or ACE at that time. Was I on Tren? I don't see a single reference to Tren. Oh, here we go. Yeah, okay, so I was on Tren ACE at 14 milligrams twice a day. Sarah, 14 times 7 is? Sarah, 14 times 7 is? No, Sarah. 7 times 14 is 98 milligrams of Trenbolone per week. So we've got 400 milligrams of Masteron, 300 milligrams of DECA, 98 milligrams of Tren ACE per week. We've got 15 milligrams of mint per day. Did I say 500 milligrams of test per week? And here's the kicker, the most important part. This is where Kowalser and I had first started butting heads. Kowalser was convinced that my estrogen was high. I was convinced that my prolactin was high. I started overdosing cabergoline, and during the week leading up to my test, I took 0 Arimidex. For the entire week leading up to this blood work, I was taking on average 1/4 milligram to 1/8 of a milligram of cabergoline per day. I had stopped taking my Arimidex because I was convinced that I had crashed my estrogen and my prolactin was too high. So for the week before this blood work, I had no Arimidex to oppose 500 milligrams of testosterone and 300 milligrams of DECA. At the end of that week, my blood work came back flagging high. My estrogen was 69 in a range of up to 29. So just slightly more than twice the top end of the reference range, which is exactly what you would expect when you're taking 500 milligrams of testosterone and no Arimidex. I should have been on a minimum of, I should have been on 3.5 milligrams of 8X per week during this period. I was not, and it caused my estrogen to rise to 69 picograms per milliliter. Now, what I did was, I said, oh my God, this is unmanageable. I have 69 picograms per milliliter of estrogen. I clearly misread my body. And so I started putting the Arimidex back into my protocol, starting immediately. My blood work did not come back until I believe, I think it was, okay, I got my blood work back Friday. and I immediately started dosing Arimidex at 1 milligram. I took 1 milligram of Arimidex on Saturday the 29th, half a milligram of Arimidex on Sunday the 30th, a milligram of no Arimidex on Monday, and then starting Tuesday, 1 milligram of Arimidex, half a 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 milligram of Arimidex. I started absolutely eating Arimidex like Skittles, trying to get my estrogen level to come back into normal. The second that I started getting my E2 to come down, if you look back on my channel during that period of time, you will see that I made a video saying, oh my God, Kowalser was right. My E2 is high. My prolactin was crashed. When I started knocking my E2 back, my D game immediately started coming back into action. So this went on from June 24th all the way through the month of July. But I was still on mint during this period of time. I was trying to stay on the mint. I wanted to believe that I could use the mint if I got my estrogen in check. So I was running during the week of July 7th. I took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I took 7 milligrams of Arimidex is what I was running per week while I was still on the mint. So while I was on the mint, I was taking 7 milligrams of Arimidex and I was still having D-game problems. And so on the 18th of July, I decided to abort the mission. 18th of July was the last day that I used mint. I took the mint out of the equation. I continued running mast at 500 milligrams per week. I was running testosterone at 500 milligrams a week. And Nandrolone stayed in there at 300 milligrams a week. And I was still running my Tren. I believe at this point I had lowered it. That's not really terribly relevant to the Tren was back down to 50 milligrams per week. So July the 18th is the last day that I was running mint, and I started taking my normal physiological amount of Arimidex to oppose 500 milligrams of testosterone. What's going on? 500 milligrams of testosterone and 300 milligrams of Deca. So it took me about 3 weeks of running this before I went and got my blood work checked again. So when I got my blood work checked again, I got it done on August the 6th. So July the 18th, I pulled the plug on the mint. I started running my normal amount of Arimidex, and on October the 6th, no, excuse me, that's 8. August the 6th, I pulled an LCMS sensitive test, and my E2 on my normal dosage of Arimidex was 22 picograms per milliliter in a range of up to 29. So it was perfectly dialed into the sweet spot, slightly on the high end of normal. The middle would be about 15. 22 is slightly up going toward the top end. 22 in a range of 29. At that point, things were working fucking perfectly again until this happened. So on August the 6th, taking the amount of Arimidex that I normally need to take, everything was back in line. And then here comes Royal Medical Center trying to do their follow-up work, because the previous time they had gotten my blood work done, it was high. They had gotten my blood work done on 7/9, and on 7/9, my estrogen level was 65.2. If we look at the notes, we will see that they pulled a non-sensitive estrogen test, and they got 65.2 in a range of up to 42.6. So they had their panties all in a wad about this, and they wanted me to get my estrogen back down to normal, despite the fact that I told them I was running other anabolics. I was running other anabolics that were capable of showing up on a non-sensitive test, and they pulled it anyway. So I got the right blood work done on August the 6th, and everything was back to normal. On August the 6th, everything was dialed perfectly in with an LCMS sensitive estradiol check. The absolute idiots at Royal Medical Center comes along 2 weeks later on August the 29th, they send me back to the lab again to get more blood work done. And guess what? My E2 level came back at 79.2. So they told me my estrogen level was all messed up, when in fact it was perfectly normal, because right here again they pulled a Roche ECLIA non-sensitive estradiol check. So I had myself dialed into the sweet spot. They ran another test and told me that my estradiol level was wrong. I automatically just assumed that they were smart enough to be running sensitive tests, and they were not. So the reason my levels kept going up and down, and the reason I decided to completely pull testosterone out of the system, is because I was convinced that there was no way to run it safely. Despite the fact that my wife will attest to you that the 15 weeks prior to starting Mint, for 15 consecutive weeks, I was running 200 milligrams of Deca, 500 milligrams of testosterone, like 300 milligrams of Nandrolone. I can't remember if I was blasting it. Trenbolone. I can't remember if I was blasting at that time, but I was running Test, Deca, Tren, Masteron with 3.5 milligrams of Arimidex, and I was perfectly dialed in for 15 weeks. My D game was rock solid, no problems at all. So what does this actually tell us? It tells us two very interesting things. One, it tells us that because I was taking 3.5 milligrams of Arimidex, which is the amount of Arimidex I would take on 500 milligrams of testosterone, and zero Deca, and I was dialed into the sweet spot. I was dialed into the sweet spot with just Test and Deca and a small amount of Arimidex that is enough to control me without the presence of Deca. When they pull my lab work and they're getting a total combination of all possible things that could be showing up as estrogen, they only got 79.2 in a range of 42.6. So what this tells us is that Deca doesn't actually aromatize hardly at all. This is something that we found out by my own most recent blood work. So on 300 milligrams of Deca, on 500 IUs of HCG 3 times per week, and on 0.1 milligrams of estradiol valerate every other day, my LCMS sensitive E2 test was only 12.4 picograms. My estrogen level was lower on 0.1 milligrams of estradiol plus Deca than it should have been on the estradiol alone. What this shows us is that Nandrolone does not aromatize hardly at all, maybe at all. It's possible that it upregulates aromatase, and so if you already have testosterone in your system, then you might get slightly more estrogen than you would otherwise. But it's pretty clear from my blood work that in my body, Nandrolone does not aromatize basically at all. It's really not measurable, and in the absence of testosterone, it produces nothing. Even when testosterone was in the mix, I was still able to control it with a normal amount of Arimidex, which means that you do not need to substantially increase your Arimidex dose in the presence of Nandrolone. It just does not really have any type of aromatase expression or action or anything at all. All of the problems that we're getting from Nandrolone must be coming from prolactin or something else, because it's definitely not estrogen, as I have been saying all along. So once again, I was right all along. I knew exactly how much Arimidex I needed to control my doses, because I had done the meticulous work of taking different doses and testing them with LCMS tests. All of the problems that I have been having have been coming from the fact that Royal Medical Centers is pulling non-sensitive estradiol tests and then telling guys that their E2 is out of line. My E2 is probably still low right now. I'm only taking 1.5 milligrams of estradiol valerate every other day. If 0.1 milligrams of estradiol valerate gave me 12.4 picograms, then by increasing my dose by half, we would only expect to get another maybe 6 picograms. So in practical application, my estradiol, if I go to get it checked right now with an LCMS sensitive test, really shouldn't be above about an 18 in a range of up to 35. So right now, at a minimum or maximum, I should be right in the center of the range, even taking estrogen injections, and Royal Men's would have me believe that I'm completely out the top end of the range, almost twice the top end of the range, because they did not and have not been pulling the proper panels. So why is this so important? The other reason it's so important is because these idiots don't have any way of knowing what their medical client is actually using. They are performing a medical service for the community. And when they pull a non-sensitive testosterone check, my testosterone came back at greater than 1500. Meanwhile, I'm not taking any testosterone at all. So these idiots at Royal Medical Center are pulling blood work that does not tell them or their client anything at all about their health. It's telling them that I have high levels of testosterone when I do not have any bioidentical testosterone in my body at all. It's telling me I have a high level of estradiol when I have a perfectly normal level of estradiol. Both of these metrics are being blown out by the fact that they are not looking for real testosterone and real E2. They're just painting with this broad brush of idiotic test results, wasting my time and their money and negatively affecting my health by not knowing what their client is using. This is almost certainly illegal. This is probably illegal. Medical clinics, any doctor who is prescribing you hormones needs to be checking, they need to be running sensitive tests to see if the hormones they are prescribing are actually in your body and exactly how much of that hormone is in my body. They should have known all this time exactly how much testosterone, what my total testosterone level is on their prescribed amount of testosterone. Greater than 1500 is not an answer. That is not an answer, and it's not an accurate answer because it's not taking into accountability the fact that they could be thinking that I was dialed in normally when in fact I'm not even using the drugs that they're prescribing me. This is a massive oversight in the TRT/medical community, and it's probably going to get the whole thing shut down. Now I just need to decide whether or not I should sue them if I can. Like, I found out that I couldn't sue the emergency room who almost killed me because in the state of Texas, if you go to an emergency room, they are completely, you cannot sue an emergency room unless you can prove that they intentionally tried to do you harm. I suspect that testosterone replacement clinics do not enjoy that same protection. So I really cannot wait to talk to the doctor about what they have been doing to my body for the past 5 consecutive years. But what I wanted to prove from my audience is that I was right all along. Every single thing that I've been thinking and feeling, all of the doses that I have been recommending to you guys, that I have been recommending to myself, are now backed up with actual empirical data. The numbers that I was pulling were accurate, and the numbers that my TRT clinic was pulling were not, and that has been the cause of a lot of misery. And I think when that fully sets in today, I'm going to end up being really, really fucking pissed off. So I'm really looking forward to the doctor who's going to be calling me soon. And just in case any of you guys are curious, the doctor who is responsible for these tests is named P. Harris. I believe it's Paul Harris from Royal Medical Center. There's another doctor that's P. Paul C. H. So Paul Harris and Paul C.H. are the people at Royal Medical Center who have been mismanaging my health care for 5 consecutive years. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the... Oh, I got a TikTok. I'm on TikTok now. Trinity #1 on TikTok, come see me. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.